personal freedom, autonomy, freedom of choice, those things that we value, that's non-existent to a technocrat. The technocrat mind is very mechanistic. In other words, they view everything as a mechanical device. So humanness is not in the equation.
Welcome back to the Collapse Life podcast. I'm your host, Zara Sethna, and I am thrilled to have you with us. If you're here for the first time, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to be diving into the idea of technocracy and its active role in shaping the world we live in. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. It's why we've invited today's guest, who is not only an author and a journalist, but an expert in all things technocracy. Patrick Wood has spent decades researching the Trilateral Commission, Agenda 21, and the rise of technocratic systems. He's actually brought forth incredible insights into the often silent forces that steer our society. He's the author of the critically acclaimed book Technocracy Rising, and he's a leading voice on the intersection of technology, governance, and freedom. And as we're about to find out, these themes are incredibly relevant to our current state of affairs, not just here in America, but in the West more broadly. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us here at Collapse Life.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It's great to have you here because I think this is such an important and relevant topic, and it's something that I know that you've been on top of for a long time. So I thought maybe people might like to hear a little bit about what first drew you to study technocracy in the first place. And for anyone who's tuning in for the first time and really hasn't heard or understood what this is, could you define it in a simple form?
Sure. When I started in the 70s, I was a dumb kid out of school, didn't know which way was up, basically. When I discovered, and I was writing research papers for a brokerage company at the time, I ran across this organization called the Trilateral Commission. I didn't know what it meant, but I didn't like it because all of a sudden I see the Carter administration was being taken over by these people and wholesale. And by chance, I ran into a scholar in New Orleans. Actually, I was from Arizona at the time. He was from California. We intersected at this gold conference
Mm.
of all places. We were the hotel was overbooked at that point, and the restaurant was just crazy. We went to breakfast. There's no room. Line out the door. The sort of thing. They announced that they were going to do European seating. I didn't know what that was at the time, but they said, "Well, we're going to seat you where we have a seat." So I got across from this table on a table with Anthony Sutton, who was a research fellow at Stanford University. And I really wasn't pleased to have to talk to anybody that hour in the morning, but we struck up a relationship very quickly. And he also had been studying the Trilateral Commission at that time, and as
Interesting.
I had, I didn't know what I was doing about. He did, and so we just decided this story is too big to not tell. So we started to do a newsletter,
Mm.
and that became a book, and then another book at some point, and so we published a book in 2 volumes, Trilaterals over Washington. That started my journey, if you will, that led me here. Why would I be concerned about that? Well, the Trilateral Commission said incessantly that they were going to create a new international economic order,
Ah.
new and international, not just from America. And we didn't know what that meant at that time. We thought, well, they're going to reshuffle the whole system, game it somehow for them, and that was true on one hand. But when they said new, I didn't understand that till the 2000s
Hmm.
when I ran across historic technocracy. As an economist, at least that was my education. As an economist, I understood a lot about economics, and There had never in the history of the world been another economic system created from scratch. Never, anywhere. And when I ran across technocracy from the 1930s that said it was an economic system that was going to replace capitalism and free market economics, bingo, like
Mhm.
that was, I said, I gotta look at this more carefully. So I went back and I researched all the stuff I had from the 70s on, and sure enough, that I ascertained that was what was in their mind in the first from the get-go was the recreation of historic technocracy as an economic system. It morphed into very quickly sustainable development, Agenda 21, 2030 agenda, new urban agenda, et cetera, by the United Nations, spread it to the whole world at that point.
Mhm.
This is a resource-based economic system. That's what they invented at, believe it or not, at Columbia University. Technocracy was modeled and created by the brainiacs, the scientists and engineers at Columbia University in 1932 in particular. There was a run up to that for sure, but that's where it all started was Columbia University. So by the time they got rolling, um, this is the definition that came out of their own publication in 1937. I'll just read it to you.
Mhm.
It's stunning, it really is. It says, technocracy is the science of social engineering, the scientific operation of the entire social mechanism to produce and distribute goods and services to the entire population. For the first time in human history, it'll be done as a scientific, technical engineering problem. Then, this goes on, there will be no place for politics, politicians, finance, or financiers. There you go.
Wow.
This they didn't want they wanted to replace all of the politicians in the world, or at least in America, with technocrats. That's what they call themselves, these engineers, if you will,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
scientists. They wanted technocrats to run everything in society according to whatever the scientific method. That's 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 not science either, but
Right.
whatever. Um, so they actually appealed to FDR to declare himself dictator once he got in office in 1933, simply to dismiss Congress altogether
Mhm.
and turn create an organization chart to appoint the technocrats to run the country right then on just by fiat. He didn't take him on it. You have to understand, FDR was a master politician at that point. He probably saw what was going to happen if he would do that. He would be dictator for a period of time until they threw him under the bus as
Mhm.
well, because it would not be good for him at that point with all these technocrats around. So he didn't do it. Nevertheless, he put some of them, a lot of them got into his administration, helping to run things. But nevertheless, this is where technocracy started. This was their mindset at that point. They wanted to get rid of the politicians. They wanted to get rid of finance and the monetary system that we had. They believed that that was corrupted beyond repair. So they wanted to do away with supply and demand economics, and that means money. That's what makes the supply demand work.
Mhm.
They wanted to create an energy script that they would use kind of in the place of money. Everybody's going to get an allocation of energy script according to how much energy there was in the system at that time. And that was basically universal basic income.
Yeah.
They wanted, everybody's going to be normalized. They would assign jobs according to how they thought you would perform. and you had to work that job. If whether you didn't like it or not didn't matter. That's your job. You have to do it if you want to get your energy script.
This
If your
it's
energy script ran out by the end of a
right.
period, like a month or quarter, too bad for you. If you end up with excess energy script, it expired at the end of the period, so you couldn't save anything. It's impossible. Private property was to be a thing of the past. They said you don't need private property at all. You will give you what you need, and that would be it. This is really dystopia,
Yeah.
really crazy stuff. But why I've been writing about this for 15 years now, all of a sudden the same stuff is popping up today.
Mhm.
Universal basic income and focus on energy, focused on scientific dictatorship to control everything in society,
Right.
all production, all resources. The land grabs that have been taking place all around the world.
Right.
If it wasn't companies like BlackRock, well, the United Nations has a system. They can snatch land away from nation states like crazy. You have to scratch your head and say, wait a minute, this is exactly what they were talking about that in 1932.
No, and it's
And
absolutely incredible, Patrick. I mean, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
yeah,
what you just laid out. There have been all kinds of chilling ideologies and philosophies in the past, and we could, touch on so many of them. But this, that definition that you just laid out is what we're living through today. It's not science fiction. It's
mhm,
life today, and it's just amazing how clearly it was all written down not that long ago, but still, almost
yes.
100 years ago. And I wanted to ask you, in all your study of it, does it look like things have evolved along a pretty straight course, or like to bring us to today? I mean, 2025, we're basically in that dystopian future,
Yeah.
where we're getting rid of bureaucracy, we're getting rid of government, we're bringing in Silicon Valley experts who are just going to run things using AI and algorithms, and we'll get into that. Do you think things have come just the way they intended them, or have they had to kind of do loop de loops and evolve things in different ways because democracy is messy and humans don't always follow?
Well, that was the idea behind what they call the science of social engineering to make us do what they wanted us to do to fill their factories and to behave, right?
Right.
Um, it hasn't it's had it has been a straight line since 1973
Mhm.
when the Trilateral Commission got a hold of technocracy in the first place. Let me tell you why say that. Zbigniew Brzezinski was the co-founder of the Trilateral Commission with David Rockefeller, the money man, banker, oil man, etc. Brzezinski happened to be a professor at Columbia University when he wrote his book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. You can substitute technotronic with technocratic. They didn't use that word technocracy at Columbia University after 1933. It was forbidden.
Mhm.
So he was writing about technocracy, but in the terms of technotronic era. He said basically there's three eras, that the one that went before, the one that we're in right then in 1975 or whatever is three, and then there was the future era that we're in right now.
Right.
Okay, he laid it out in great detail at that point. And when um, when uh, when Rockefeller put money to the project and fed it then to the United Nations almost immediately upon forming the Trilateral Commission In fact, it was 9 months before or just after the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations passed a general resolution calling for the establishment of a new international economic order. People missed that. It was Resolution 3201, I think it was, that called for, we're going to do this new international economic order. The same language that the Trilateral Commission said.
Right.
Okay. And fast forward, however, through Agenda 21 and beyond there to Agenda 2030 a few years ago, the United Nations, which is heavily influenced by Rockefeller family in the first place, they became the contagion to take this to the world.
Mm-hmm.
This was exactly sustainable development. When Agenda 21 popped out at the Rio conference in 1992, it was almost like a just epiphany at that point for technocracy. And they said this is going to be the agenda for the 21st century. All of these technocrats who were executing this plan were hidden all this time. They didn't surface. In fact, David Rockefeller made sure that news of the Trilateral Commission didn't get out because he wanted to keep everything secret. And they weren't willing to come out to do press conferences, debates, stuff like that. Never.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some mighty powerful people along the way who were associated with them. So when Agenda 21 came out, you see the operators. You can look back, see people like Maurice Strong, the kind of the head honcho of that conference. He was a member of the Trilateral Commission, by the way, for a time. You get to the 2000s now. Where were the technocrats? Well, they were there, but they weren't visible then. They've managed to stay behind the scenes when all of the scientific revolution took place in 2000 that produced this new convergent science business. They still were submerged by and large.
Mm-hmm. All
All of a sudden now, well, let me back up just to one thing. In 2023, in 2023, at a general meeting of the Trilateral Commission, I think it was in India at the time, a Trilateral Commission member stood up. We haven't identified who it was, but it was reported. He stood up and said, "This is year one of the new international economic order." That was his assessment. That was year one. So from 1973 to 2023, this is year one. Was it all according to plan? I don't know for sure, but okay, he's established it now. So in this administration, all of a sudden, the technocrat class has surfaced, in your face, coming into a power, if you will, to assert themselves all over the place. This is new. This was not the case 3 years ago, even when the Trilateral Commission guy said this is the year one of the new order. So this looks to me like the ascendancy of technocracy being asserted by technocrats like Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we go from here? Your guess is as good as mine, I suppose, but it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be pretty because these technocrats have a different mindset than most people in America, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about that. I mean, yes. So it seems like all of a sudden, stepped out of the shadows, no more secrecy. We don't need it anymore. And, it's everywhere now. And people like you and I, at least, who are paying attention to this, are seeing it. We're seeing echoes of plans that were made 80 years ago, 90 years ago, coming to the fore now, and certainly the actions that we're seeing are following along with strategies that we've heard of through reading about technocracy. One of which is this idea of a North American technate, which I'd love to have you talk a little bit more about. But the idea, I guess, was floated in the 1930s, in the early days of technocracy, of having a single administrative zone across what we know now as North America. And now with this administration, just in the first few months, we have Trump openly musing that he wants to annex Canada and acquire Greenland and reclaim the Panama Canal. And so do you
Yes.
think that that's part of this kind of activation of the plan?
You have to see this map. This is the cover of the technocracy study course written in 1934. There's the cover. See the map?
Yeah.
Greenland, Canada, America, or United States, Mexico, Central America, and top two countries in South America. What can you say? This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is what they thought back then. All of a sudden, I mean, nobody paid attention to what's Greenland in 1932. Who cares? I mean, there was nobody there but the sea lions or whatever, the orcas. It was a barren rock, basically.
Right.
Well, the technocrats of that day, for whatever reason that they thought, they imagined that was going to be the North American technate. They never said how, not one word on how they were going to convince all of these countries to go along with their plan. They have no military. They had no money behind them, not at all, nothing. They had an idea, I guess you could say, but they were at Columbia University, but they never said, well, how are we going to conquer these lands? Or somehow they're going to roll over and just say, we're going to join you because you're technocrats and you're scientists and engineers. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Hmm.
This is as crazy today as it was then. It really is.
And
Go
yet
figure.
it's not fiction. It's real. This is happening.
It
So
is. I know. The proof is right here on this cover. This was really humorous to me that some journalist, maybe he saw this picture on my website or something, I don't know. Some journalist with a liberal media was writing about Trump wanting to go and get Canada become the first 51st state, and going to get Greenland into the mix, and we're going to go get the Panama Canal. Why don't we throw Mexico into with it as well? And hey, we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
right.
Oh, holy mackerel! Well, somebody got a hold of this picture from way back. They just knee jerk say, well, there's one here in these different places. And they had no idea that they were showing this map on national TV. I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. They had no clue that was a technocracy study course they were holding in their hand. And that was back in 1932 when they came out with this stuff in the first place.
Yeah. It's almost laughable. I mean, and I think, Donald Trump seems to be the perfect foil for bringing this out into the open, because many times people do look at him and just sort of laugh at the things he says, almost because of the way he says them or the things that he says. And so you can say things out in the open and people don't even take it seriously. But let's talk about some of the things that underpin the the philosophy that is now coming to the fore. Like, what do technocrats think about freedom? Is freedom even a concept that they consider? And if they believe that freedom exists, how do they intend to work around it or wipe it out so that they can do what they want to do?
Exactly. I have to say, they do not believe in freedom in the sense that we do. Personal freedom, autonomy, freedom of choice, those things that we value, that's non-existent to a technocrat.
Right.
The technocrat mind is very mechanistic. In
Mhm.
other words, they view everything as a mechanical device. So humanness is not in the equation. When let me give an example of why I say that. Um, in 1992, when Agenda 21 was created, there was a parallel convention going on at the same time, same place, called the Biodiversity Convention.
Mhm.
And it produced kind of the manual of how they're going to implement chapter and verse of the Agenda 21 doctrine. It was really crazy. But the definition of biodiversity was changed inadvertently, and it was a subtle change because before then, when you talk to people about biodiversity, well, it means the species in the forest. It means the you know the stuff that's going to go to extinct or is not, or whatever.
Right.
You think about the land and the biodiversity of the nature.
Right.
Well, that all changed with Agenda 21. And basically, we were all of a sudden wrapped into the concept of biodiversity, where we became just as the animals were, the cattle in the field, the deers and the deer in the forest, and so on, that we are all of a sudden part of that mix.
Mhm.
So if the whole earth is going to be managed, if you will, the resources are going to be managed. We're just another resource for them to manage.
Wow.
This is small but important change of definition.
Mhm.
So no, they don't have any concept on one hand of humanness, what it means to be human, because they want to treat us like animals. Essentially,
Right.
that's not human.
Right.
So when they talk about um, things like universal basic income, oh, by the way, I'm sorry, but you're all going to be out of jobs. We're sorry, you're not going to be employed again. We're going to call you the unemployables. We just didn't want it to happen this way, but hey, it happened that way. So too bad. Okay, you're now the unemployables of the world. We're going to give you a universal basic income. You'll be happy. You won't own anything by 2030. So it says Klaus Schwab. You'll be
Mhm.
happy though, because you don't have to worry about any property to take care of.
Right.
Um, okay, so where is this all going to go at that point? Well, you established a serf class of people, could be a majority of the people in the world at that point, for sure. This is not freedom.
Yeah.
This is gonna be just like managing all the cattle in the feedlot
Exactly.
for
And
them, in their mind.
just like you put RFID tags in your cattle's ear, they want to have digital IDs for us so they can manage us and see where we move to and are we allowed to move and
Yeah,
what disease what might we be bringing from place to place. So it really does sound exactly like a managed resource when you start to
yes,
pin all these pieces together. And we've heard
yes,
about these things in isolation, CBDCs and
yeah,
universal basic income and digital IDs, but when you
yeah,
start packaging it together like this,
yes.
it's all too real.
It's
And yet still, Patrick, people still would say that this conversation that we're having is all just conspiracy theory. How would you respond to that?
I'm sorry, I shed that immediately at this point. We were originally Sutton and I were the original conspiracy theorists, according to David Rockefeller. Okay, honestly, I mean, we were the original people that was pinned on.
Mhm.
I've been called that for forever now by
Right.
by my critics for sure. I tell them, "Go suck an egg." I'm tired of listening to you people.
Yeah.
you're just spreading the manure around.
Right.
Get
It's
out of my face. I've got the goods on these people. I got the research. And in fact, when Sutton and I first wrote our first book, we challenged people. Honestly, we challenged people. If you find anything that's wrong in this book, come and tell us so we can correct it.
Mhm.
Nobody came forward. We sold 75,000 books. It was taught in universities around the country even, and as a textbook, nobody challenged us.
Right. Denying any of this at this stage it seems sillier than trying to even call it a conspiracy theory, because I mean
It's
there are
not.
people now.
Absolutely, positively. No
Yeah,
way anybody can stand uh, behind that kind of a charge at this point. They can't do it. Just can't
exactly.
do it. The evidence is overwhelming, even by their own lips. I keep that challenge even now for the last 3 books that I've written on technocracy, especially. Um, if you find cracks in my theory, bring them on.
Mhm.
We'll talk about it.
Let's talk about some of the real life people who are in advisory roles in the Trump administration
Yes.
who are following exactly the pattern of technocratic ideals. So one is David Sachs. He was appointed as the crypto and artificial intelligence czar. He's in charge of the crypto conference at the White House. What's the connection there? What signals do you see in terms of technocratic ideals in process?
There's 2 things on the table right now. They're probably the most important things in our society. One is the issue of AI, the role that AI will play in the future as far as governance is concerned in America. Probably the world, but we're talking about America right now. You see that AI is just going to be lathered on government agencies. OpenAI, for instance, came up with a product 2 or 3 weeks ago called OpenAI Gov, specifically made for governments to use so that it could be secure and, with the data and stuff like that. I don't know how they can do that, but nevertheless, it satisfies the government now their requirements to use OpenAI openly,
Mhm.
even to manage whole departments, maybe even replace whole agencies with AI. That's one thing. The other thing is our monetary system.
Right.
What's going on here? Everybody was concerned up through Biden. Everybody was concerned about central bank digital currencies that was sponsored all over the world by the Bank for International Settlements,
Mhm.
kind of the central bank of central banks. And there was a lot of research and testing going on all over the world to affect a system of interconnected central bank digital currencies.
Mhm.
Trump executed an executive order as soon as he got into office forbidding our Federal Reserve, that's our central bank, from issuing central bank digital currency. Period.
Right.
End of subject. Whoa. Nobody saw that coming.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so what's going on here? I had to just blew me away. He did that. Maybe it'll get challenged in court. I don't know, but remembering that the Federal Reserve in the first place is a private institution. It's not public in any way. It's privately owned. That means it's out of the purview of government in one sense, but
Right.
nevertheless, Trump could execute it, like an order like that to tell him, no, you can't do that. So at the same time, he appoints David Sachs to be his crypto czar,
Mhm.
And all of the other technocrats in the administration at this point, they are all on the same page as far as cryptocurrency is concerned. Are they intending at this point to implement some type of an alternative to central bank digital currencies? Will it be based on stable coins, for instance, maybe a tether or some other
Mhm.
type of crypto? I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. But have some plan, and they just have this crypto conference in Washington to
Yeah.
discuss exactly where they go. I haven't looked at it yet. I need to, but something is brewing big time with our money system.
Mhm.
My guess, at some point, the fiat dollar is going to just go up in smoke,
Yeah.
probably with other currencies around the world at the same time, and it'll have to be replaced by something that's equivalent, at least to use for services and goods and whatever, maybe for universal basic income, who
Mhm.
knows? But it's gonna have to be something radically different than what we have going that we have not right now, because it's everything we do now is based on supply and demand that requires a currency to operate, right?
Mhm.
If they replace this with, um, crypto, and let me just make the observation, crypto is all about the energy that went into it to mine it in the first place.
Hmm.
You just have to think about that. Crypto is energy intensive to the max
Yeah.
to mine and create stuff. Same thing with AI. AI is consuming inordinate amounts of power.
Yeah.
Anywhere they cite these things, they're sucking the grid dry.
Mhm.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it seems to me that we're pivoting back to energy script. You know,
Yeah.
I can't quite say that, but something just doesn't add up. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, crypto is in our future somehow, and that will require a universal ID system that's
Right.
probably gonna go hand in hand with AI as well. You know it is.
Right. The name Curtis Yarvin has come up a lot recently, and he's someone who has been kind of secretively in the shadows up until quite recently. Can you explain a little bit about he is, what his ideas are, and how he's kind of gaining traction with people like JD Vance and Peter Thiel?
Curtis Yarvin is, the modern Zbigniew Brzezinski, I suppose, trying to spread poison to the minds of the technocrats. However, he's far, far below the class and the intelligence of a Zbigniew Brzezinski, for sure. Um, he's, an entrepreneur himself. He's been a tech guy, programmer type who fashions himself as a philosopher. And in my opinion, he has had too many LSD trips along the way. That's just my opinion. I've had a
Hmm.
lot of friends in the past. I never took LSD, but it's it's this guy kind of talks that way. You know, it's just really weird. But nevertheless, he's been instrumental, especially with Peter Thiel, but also the tech community at large across Silicon Valley. You have to remember also that Peter Thiel is the guy that started the culture in Silicon Valley in the first place as a tech entrepreneur. He is the founder
Yeah.
of a co-founder with Elon Musk of PayPal back in the day. And for whatever or good or bad, he started the culture modeled on his perception of reality, move fast, break things sort of mentality, and being a disruptor
Right.
of society. So Peter Thiel kind of locked in to Curtis Yarvin along the way, who has a crazy idea. He calls it the Dark Enlightenment. Makes no sense, but that's what he says. And his idea is basically corporations should own the states, the nation, not the individual states, not like Arizona or Texas. But he makes the case that uh, the corporation should own the state outright. The state, whatever it is, should just obey the dictates of the org chart, and to do what the corporation says. Well, imagine Amazon owning America. What would that what would that look like if Amazon ruled America like it rules its own warehouses and its own company? We'd all be in big trouble. But this idea of his, he pins it pre-Russia days to the Prussian era, where that exactly was the case, where the corporation or the system economic entities actually owned the state that was close to feudalism, actually. So he made this statement, one of his writings, that every square inch of a nation state should be owned by the corporation.
Yeah.
Okay, that means to me, by 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Sounds about right.
Forget being happy. Okay, so this is the mentality that he's seeded people like Peter Thiel with, and Elon Musk, and the whole bunch of them. Actually, they all love Yarvin,
Right.
and that also includes J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance was he was mentored by Peter Thiel in the first place to be a politician. So you would think that he would probably follow suit, and he has.
Right. And the first step in this plan is to gut the administrative state. It's to get
Yes,
rid of all the
exactly.
bureaucrats. Retire all the government employees and then bring
Yes.
in technocrats and computers who can just do whatever work needs to get done. And isn't that exactly what we're seeing right now in Washington, D.C.?
Exactly. Yarvin is a technocrat, first off. Whatever other philosophy he comes up with, is still essentially technocracy. So when he talks about gut the government and deregulate the government and establish a monarchy in its place to appoint technocrats all over society, that was the plan. That just absolutely, to me, that's exactly what they tried to do in 1933 when Roosevelt came in power. They wanted him to be the monarch and appoint them to run everything. This is where we are right now with Doge, for instance. You're going to see a massive layoffs of employees. Some will just quit, but there'll be a massive layoffs, and maybe some agencies will be terminated as well. And it's all going to be replaced with AI.
Yeah.
You have to, when you get rid of people, whether you like them or not is immaterial, but they're part of the system of things. Is a horrible system, but it works nevertheless.
Right, exactly. Right. It's a terrible system, but it's the system we know.
I know, exactly. So you can't just cut out functioning parts of your body and expect it to work correctly. You have to replace it with something, and probably it's going to be like the prosthetics of AI at this point.
Right.
That's the only way they can do it at this point.
Right.
So our government is being restructured right now. Make no bones about that. Our government, and in fact, Elon Musk said before the election he's going to restructure the government. That's from a technocrat point of view. That's exactly what he's doing. So we're going to see massive changes, I think, in governance in America. If AI gets a hold of our country, that's going to be the end of human governance, I'm afraid.
Right.
And they're setting Trump up to be the monarch, basically.
So this is really a very clear story that you're telling. We've followed a pretty straight path from the 1930s to 2025, um, and we're now seeing technocracy at play, out in the open. Is it irreversible, or has the train left the station, and now we just have to learn how to survive in this new dystopian system?
Good question. I'm always hopeful that something might change. The American people are the only ones that can throw this off. They did so, by the way, in the 30s and 40s, especially in the 40s. They saw through the crackpot schemes of those technocrats back in that era, and they said, you're out of here. You're not going to do that here.
Hmm.
We could do that again for sure. If we did it then, we can do it again.
That's great.
It's gonna be tough, but I I can't I can't count the American people out altogether.
Mhm.
I just can't, because we've always been at against the odds in history. Somehow we survived. I don't know how. And maybe this is going to be different. Maybe we're getting into the end times where the tribulation will start, and that'll be the end of everything.
Mhm.
But at this point, we could probably make a difference. I don't know.
I think
I'm not
it's
hopeful I'm going to make any difference, but nevertheless, you know, it's,
it's a battle worth fighting, right? Whether we win or lose, at
it
least
is.
if we can open, you and I together can help open some people's eyes to at least
Yes.
what's happening. I wanted to ask, because and it's a perfect segue since you mentioned it. Do you see a connection between an increasing rise in secularism in our society and technocracy being able to kind of flourish the way it has?
Yeah, there's an aspect of secularism. Um, it's not religious in the religious sense, based on a deity or whatever, but it is definitely mechanistic in worldview.
Mhm.
Um, However, we have to say that technocracy and transhumanism both are based on scientism,
Right.
which was a religion that was crafted by a French philosopher in the early 1800s. And basically, that posited that we should worship science, and science should have a priesthood of engineers and scientists to tell the people what science said for
Right.
them to do. That was very clear when Henri de Saint-Simon, French and French philosophy, he came. This was where the whole thing started with scientism, and you can see scientism peeking through.
Mhm.
Every time you see some engineer or somebody like Elon Musk standing up saying, "Well, I have the answer. I have the science. I'm whatever about blah blah blah. I'm just the prophet. I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Whatever."
Mhm.
This is what this is the heartbeat of scientism,
Right.
and that was declared to be religion, by the way, not last century. So we can't hide this to say, "Well, no, it's not religious." Well, it really is religious in that sense. It's all based on scientism in the
Mhm.
first place.
Mhm. And there've been in the recent generations sort of concerted efforts to take religion out of society where it was once kind of baked into American
Yes.
society, and it's out of schools, it's out of dining room table conversations. It's really um, we've become a far less faithful people, I think, in recent generations. But it seems like the last 5 years, certainly with COVID and things, there seems to be a lot more people turning back towards some belief in whatever that religious belief might be for them,
Mhm.
but some kind of belief in a higher power. And I'm wondering if that might be a bit of an antidote to, or at least a break on the um, the astronomical rise of technocracy. It's happening, but maybe we can slow it down by actually
Mhm.
reminding ourselves where we are placed in society, and that science is a process. Science doesn't have categorical black and white answers. It's always changing, and we're bound to ask questions if we want to follow a scientific method. So,
Well, exactly. And I have to say, I'm not anti-science in any way. I've always loved science. I love engineering. I was in the computer business for years in the 80s and 90s. I love this stuff. I had all the gadgets along the way. But the problem we're dealing with here is this megalomaniac crowd that want to use technology to do us in, so to speak.
yeah,
It's not about technology, it's about them, the ones that are using it inappropriately against the human race.
right.
That's the problem.
How do the technocrats spare themselves from that? I mean, if they're using these blunt technological tools kind of against the human race, the way you just
Mm.
described things, how do they exempt themselves from it and their children and their grandchildren?
Well, that's a good question. People like Jeff Bezos, Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk, the tech oligarchs, for sure, they have enough money. They're putting billions of dollars into life extension companies
Hmm.
who are experimenting with genetic solutions for chemical solutions, whatever, to extend life and even conquer the disease of death. They say that death is a disease that can be conquered.
Yeah.
That doesn't square with the Bible, by the way. The Bible is very clear that it's appointed to man to die, and then comes a judgment. But they don't get that part for sure.
Mm.
But they think that they can conquer death. Now that technology will not be ever trickling out to you and me for
Yeah.
sure. Not for $100 or $2,000 or whatever. Forget it.
Right.
They'll be the recipients of that type of technology themselves. If Elon Musk wants to put a brain chip with his neural link into his brain, fine, but it's never going to be inexpensive to where you and I will get your hands on it. So
Yeah.
that's their solution right now, and the ultimate solution for people like Musk and Bezos is to colonize Mars.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, their thinking is because we're going to destroy this planet in short order, we need to escape to the stars.
Yeah.
That doesn't tell you very much about what they think about humanity,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah. No,
And
it, go ahead. It
he,
speaks volumes
well,
about what they think.
I know Bezos himself has said that in the future, when we flee this to the stars, we'll turn Earth into basically a park, a theme park for the people to return to remember how Earth was
My goodness.
with its forests and its whatever, the lakes and the hiking trails or whatever. This is so crazy thinking
Mhm.
that you just can't conceive. But
Yeah.
you look at these people. On one hand, they look like normal people. You can look at Elon Musk in a photograph, just a guy, just a human person, right?
Mhm.
But then he comes out with crazy words coming out of his mouth. Same with Jeff Bezos. Are these people just batty? Do they have? Is it? We used to say, do they have bats in the belfry? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, you'd like to think that they are just crazy, because it's easier to just write people off if they say things that are just pure crazy. But so far, as you've just laid out for us so clearly, some of these ideas that have been floating around for
Yes.
decades that sounded crazy at some point in the past are now
Yes.
the reality that we're living in. So I think
Yes.
it's dangerous for us to just write it all off as the ravings of madmen.
Mhm.
We're coming to the close of a really fascinating hour, and I really am so grateful to you for coming in and sharing this with us. For folks who are watching this who haven't gone quite as deeply as certainly you have on this, or even where I may be on reading and learning about some of this stuff, um, what would you say people should be really focused on? What are the really big red flags, the flashing lights, the things that are most kind of shocking, or at least in that things that people, maybe something that people can do something about?
Yeah. I tell you what, people need to understand who the enemy is first. If you can't understand your enemy, how are you going to defeat him? That's common sense, right? And at this point, if this goes over your head, what we're talking about, it's pretty easy for you to understand if you just dig a little bit before you go off half cocked. I just introduced a technocracy boot camp for people to get a full view of the beginning to the end of technocracy.
Amazing.
25 hours, you could be completely conversant on what we're talking about
Mhm.
here. When you have that under your belt, then there you'll see solutions at that point, I think. But if you don't have that, you're just not going to understand what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Truly, you can't cover it in 1 hour
Yeah.
for sure. So I encourage people to dig in and understand who the enemy is, and then make your own plan. Maybe it's going to be a big plan and involve a whole bunch of people. Maybe it's just be for you and your family. I don't know, but we certainly have to take some aspect of our local communities
Mhm.
to stop this stuff from coming in. The AI governance, for instance, that's coming to the city you live in right now,
Right.
for sure, guaranteed. Open AI Gov, that product's going to be sold all over the country. So it's just a matter of time before the people in the pinstripe suits show up to sell your city and your mayor why you need this stuff. You can stop that if you get on the ball and go to talk to your mayor, your city council, your city manager, those people, and put up a block. Put a block from these people, the technocrats, to come down to your city. You can do it,
Mhm.
but otherwise, it's really important to maintain your humanness. They want to strip your humanity away from you. Anything you can do to be remain human, be in touch with people, hug your hug your kids, your friends, your whatever, touch them, have real conversations with them.
Yeah.
Uh, stuff like that. That's going to be really important.
Amazing. The technocracy boot camp sounds like a really good use of my time. Anyway, I hope other people feel the same way. So, remind people how they can find you, where they can find your writing, your books, and follow you to learn
Yeah.
more.
Certainly, all my books are on Amazon, and also there's a Kindle version, audiobook versions if people like to listen to books. They're also available on my website, technocracy.news. Of course, you can't buy multiple books on Amazon and get a discount. You can on my website, technocracy.news, because I encourage people to buy in quantity. So I lower the threshold like 50% for books orders over 10 books, or 10 or order over.
Mhm.
Um, so um, the boot camp is only available on technocracy.news as well. So all the information is there. I've been spent years putting this stuff together. I have is at this point over 6,500 articles that I posted on technocracy.news. I started a long time ago. I can't believe it's been this long. But if anybody is ignorant at this point, they don't have to be ignorant.
Right.
It's all been, I've laid it all out for them in spades. So
Absolutely.
nobody has an excuse.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful that you have been on this beat for such a long time and you've done amazing work. We're really, really grateful and so glad that you came on to share this with us today. And I hope that you'll come back and we can go a little bit deeper next time.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Oh, that was such an eye opening conversation. We hope Patrick's deep dive into technocracy and the impacts on our world left you as informed and energized as it did us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and please share it with others who need to hear this critical discussion. This is ultimately the fight for our freedom, and we should be sharing this far and wide. To know more about this channel, you can visit collapselife.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter. You can also support us on your own terms by checking out our Buy Me a Coffee page. We run on caffeine, and so even one coffee goes a long way to keep us alert and focused on bringing you more vital conversations like this brilliant one with Patrick. That's it for us this week. We'll be back again in 7 days. And until then, we just remind you to keep your chin up. It's only collapse. See you soon.